At the end of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, our protagonist, Rey, searches far and wide in the galaxy to search for our legendary Luke Skywalker. Now, when she does finally find him at the end of the film, she finds him angry, isolated, bitter, and afraid. How's it going, everyone? Today we'll be exploring social isolation, its adverse effects, and what communities around the world are doing to combat the issue. Now, social isolation can be defined as a perceived lack of or limited social contact and can be seen in people with few social network ties or when they're possibly living by themselves. In a consensus study report by the National Academies Press called Social Isolation and Loneliness in Older Adults, it states that social isolation and loneliness are associated with poor physical and mental health outcomes, including high rates of mortality, depression, and cognitive decline. The report does focus on the older generations, but at a time like this, where social distancing is the new norm, the issue is more relevant. In the United States and Canada, the medical communities have been working hard to identify trends amongst those most likely affected by a lack of social ties. In Japan, young adults who engage in voluntary social withdrawal to almost complete isolation are being found to be at higher risk of developing suicidal tendencies. And as in the case of coronavirus and the elderly, the isolation is involuntary, but as dire as it sounds, people are already working on solutions. In Norway, in particular, a startup company is working on creating communication technology to help connect those in need. Now, lack of social ties can be deadly, and the less access you have to resources, the deadlier it can be. In a study run from 1982 to 2012 by the American Cancer Society and published by the American Journal of Epidemiology, Dr. Cassandra Alcaraz in her research found that social isolation was deadliest amongst older black women in comparison to older white men. The study suggests that the adverse symptoms of social isolation can be reversed with identifying and intervening with those who have become isolated. Now, this was a study tracking the lives of the older generation. What happens when younger people are voluntarily isolating themselves? In Japan, young men from their teens to their mid 40s have been choosing to self isolate as a means to avoid society as a whole. And they are known as hikikomori. Roseline Young and Kyoko Nomura of the University of Akita, Japan, published a study in which they observed that young men who dropped out of school and had a history of psychiatric treatment were more likely to become hikikomori. Now, social isolation is becoming such an issue for our health. Let's see what can be done in an age where social distancing is the norm. As stated earlier, there is a Norwegian startup tech company called No Isolation, and they're currently working on tech that can help the elderly and sick children better connect with people, so there's no loss in community. They've developed a telepresence robot that can act as a student substitute while they recover in the hospital or at home. The device live streams lessons and has a built-in speaker for the student to engage with class. They also have developed a tablet device called COMM that makes it easier to navigate than a smartphone so the elderly can stay connected with their families. Now, we've seen how isolation is deadlier among American black women, leads to higher risk in suicide amongst Japanese youth, and we've seen how no isolation is one of many groups of people trying to tackle the social isolation pandemic head on. Groups of from around the world have decades of research in regards to social isolation. The more information we have in our arsenal, the better chance we have at preventing these issues and providing better solutions to address the root causes. In a post-coronavirus world, finding ways to stay connected is crucial to our physical and mental health. Understanding the issue can help communities as a whole prevent mortalities and bring communities closer together. So when Ray finds Luke alone, bitter and angry in his isolation, and refuses to give up on him, she was doing what any decent person would do to help someone out of their rut. She provided a support system that was always there, but only needed to be reminded. Thank you.